This is one of those stories that I am sickened by. The DACA recipient, only 39 years old, died in ICE custody at a facility in Adelanto. He was approved for DACA protection in 2012. He wanted to renew that DACA protection. That protection was denied in 2016. And about 2 weeks after arriving at the immigration detention center, he complained that he felt sick. His name is Ismael Ayala Uribe. And at first, he said he had a cough, then a fever. And by Thursday, some days later, he was shaking and complaining of pain. And a staff member flagged his condition as potentially life-threatening, according to internal emails. He was rushed to a detention medical center in a wheelchair, ultimately. But an hour and a half later, medical staffers cleared him to go back to the facility, the detention facility. He was not taken to a hospital, and he was scheduled for surgery for an abscess on his buttock. Ultimately, 3 days later, he was complaining of pain on his buttock.
Mm-hmm.
But by 2:32 in the morning, he was dead. This is something that spotlights a concern with these facilities. These immigration detention centers across the nation are, again, they're basically giant dorms. They set them up, as you know, with oftentimes, as is reported, these despicable conditions and with minimal to no medical care. This guy came to the United States when he was 4 years old. He'd been protected from deportation because of DACA, the Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals Program. And his renewal application was denied. It was nearly a decade ago that he was convicted of a DUI. And that's the reason that his conviction led to him not getting approval for renewal. In any case, the unsafe, unsanitary way in which these people have to live inside these detention facilities is now being exposed. And it's a terrible, terrible fact that we've so othered these people. This administration, in my judgment, has just created a sense of an othering such that we don't focus on many of these people who are such sweet souls, who have been here for long periods of time and been productive members of society and American culture, that this stuff doesn't even make most people's radar. There's a lot to this story, and a lot is wrapped up in this story that's wrong with our system of immigration and detention. And again, this facility, which is run by a for-profit corrections firm called the Geo Group, they run a bunch of them. They were unprepared to handle this number of detainees. They had a shortage of experienced staffers. This has now been documented. And many staffers are saying that they didn't want to complain and they have limited experience, but they could lose their job if they said anything. In the case of Ayala Uribe, that might have been a factor. This is the 14th person to die in federal immigration custody since January. 11 died in custody in 2024, 7 in 2023, 3 in 2022. And again, it was the COVID pandemic that led to the death of many of these people early on in 2020, 2021. Now there's really no excuse, except for the fact that it's pack them in, it's build these facilities, pack more in, because we're a for-profit prison corporation. And so another
That's awful.
man dies at age 39. In a situation that was treatable. I mean, he had a condition that was completely treatable. Meantime, we'll talk to both Sarah Kendzior and David Katz about the fact that U.S. prosecutors are likely going to seek an indictment of former FBI Director James Comey in Virginia is where they'll seek it. And by the way, that's because they're trying to avoid Washington, D.C. courts, I believe. We'll talk to David more about this. But if you're wondering why Virginia, it's right across the bridge, from Washington. Prosecutors are expected to ask a grand jury to indict former FBI Director James Comey in the Eastern District of Virginia in the coming days. The exact charges remain unclear.
Doesn't matter what the charges are.
No, just get him.
He's just being, whatever the charges are, it's just because he went against Trump, right? Just because he's a Trump enemy. That's all. That's all he did.
Exactly right. And I would say that when it comes to the law in this case, you have a prosecutor who pushed away from the case, said there's nothing here. There's nothing here with Adam Schiff. There's nothing here with Letitia James. There is just no evidence, Mr. President. There is nothing I can do.
That's unacceptable. You're all fired. Bring in the next guy who will do what I want.
Exactly. The Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert resigned under Trump pressure. And Trump called for him to be removed because he couldn't bring these charges. And when, again, we talk about these charges, like what charges can you find me? Find me some charges against these people. And so they've replaced Eric Siebert with this insurance attorney. She's never even prosecuted a case, but she's there to do one thing, and she understands she's there to do one thing. She was literally there, I think, a day, and she had to figure out a way to begin a process of prosecution against James Comey. Lindsay Halligan is her name. And so even as she's getting memoranda that say, hey, there's no evidentiary cause here for us to put a case together, they are pursuing it. And we'll talk to David Katz about it later in the show. Amazon is going to pay $2.5 billion to settle the lawsuit brought from the FTC. It was brought because apparently it is very difficult to back out of the Prime subscription that many of you have. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, saying that the company enrolled millions of customers without their consent and made it difficult to cancel. And Kim was noting yesterday that it takes like 10 clicks just to get even close to cancellation. Isn't that right?
It was 8 pages and at least 15 clicks. Yeah. I mean, they make it nearly impossible to get rid of it.
So they're agreeing to pay $2.5 billion in fines and to redress to Prime subscribers some monies. This is all to settle this lawsuit by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission. And again, I'll point to this just as something of an example of what government regulation and government advocacy on the part of the people can look like, right? This is how it works. But there is less and less regulation, and there's less and less advocacy on the part of the people each hour as this administration undoes all of that. The administration is being pushed, that is to say the DOJ, to investigate George Soros's foundation. Again, this is all of a kind. We'll talk more about that with David Katz. This is a directive from the Justice Department attorneys to draft plans to investigate a group funded by George Soros. He's, of course, the billionaire Democratic donor. And President Trump has demanded that he be thrown in jail. Again, don't bother me with details. Just throw him in jail.
Find me a reason.
The statue of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump holding hands. It was in the National Mall. And by the way, it was legally there in the National Mall. They got a permit for this statue. It has now been taken down. Now, the permit actually was for this statue to remain there through Sunday. But I guess because of an irritation to the current administration, it was taken down early. The artwork entitled Best Friends Forever installed near the Capitol Tuesday morning. It became a tourist attraction almost immediately. It shows them holding hands and skipping, both the Donald Trump and disgraced financier and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The plaque said, in honor of Friendship Month, we celebrate the longstanding bond between President Donald J. Trump and his closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. It's sweet when these sorts of things are memorialized, but sadly, it didn't last long. And
now the Department of Interior says, wait a minute, the permit didn't say you were going to do that.
Yeah, and the permit didn't say that. It was very cleverly put, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But, and so the statue goes away. That, my friends, is law and disorder.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.